Margaret, 67, woke up on her bathroom floor at 3 a.m., her body cold against the tile, her mind spinning. She tried to move her left arm. Nothing. The clock ticked as her phone lay just out of reach. Hours earlier, she'd done what she'd done every morning for years, taken her pills. But that night, one simple mix-up almost ended her life. Her blood pressure dropped so low that her body simply gave out. And the terrifying part? She had no idea she'd made a mistake until it was almost too late. What happened to Margaret could happen to anyone over 60. Because after a certain age, our routines, the ones we think keep us safe, can quietly become the very things that put us in danger. I'm going to walk you through 7 critical mistakes that are silently putting seniors at risk every single day. These aren't theories or guesses. These are real, documented stories from real people just like you. Each one carries a warning, a lesson, and a way out. Some of them will surprise you. Others might hit close to home. But all of them have one thing in common. They could save your life or the life of someone you love. Before we dive in, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Here's why: it's not about numbers. It's about reach. YouTube only pushes life-saving content like this when people engage early. By subscribing, you're not just protecting yourself. You're helping this message reach another senior before tragedy strikes. Now, let's start with the mistakes that every senior needs to stop making immediately. Mistake 1. Taking medications without a system. Margaret Sullivan had spent 37 years teaching 4th graders how to stay organized. Color-coded binders, clean desks, neatly labeled folders. Structure was her gift. But retirement had brought something she wasn't prepared for. 6 daily medications, each in its own bottle, each with a different schedule. "I'm a teacher," she'd laugh. "I can handle a few pills." Every morning, she lined them up beside her coffee mug and took them by memory. No chart, no checklist, just habit. But habits, especially at her age, have a way of turning against you. One Friday morning, she couldn't remember if she'd already taken her blood pressure pill. She stared at the half-empty bottle, tried to think back, but her mind felt foggy. Better safe than sorry, she thought, and swallowed another. Hours later, as she reached for her toothbrush that night, the room tilted violently. She tried to steady herself, but her left side gave out. The next thing she remembered was the cold floor and her neighbor's voice shouting her name through the bathroom door. Paramedics found her barely conscious, her blood pressure dangerously low. At the hospital, a young doctor gently explained that she'd likely taken a double dose of her medication, triggering a near-fatal drop. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said softly. "You just didn't have a system." In the recovery ward, a hospital pharmacist taught her something she now swears by: the 3-part medication system. Step 1. A weekly pill organizer filled every Sunday evening, 1 compartment for each day, labeled clearly in bold print. Step 2. Phone alarms set at exact times, morning, noon, and night, so she never relies on memory. Step 3. A printed medication list with pill names, dosages, and photos, taped to her refrigerator. Every 3 months, she and her daughter update it together, crossing off what's changed. It's been 18 months since that night, and Margaret hasn't missed or doubled a dose once. She now runs a small medication safety group at her church, showing other seniors how to set up their own systems. "I used to think being careful was enough," she says, holding up her pill organizer. "Now I know it's not about being careful. It's about being consistent." Her story is a quiet warning. No one is too smart, too organized, or too experienced to make a small mistake that can have devastating consequences. Now, while Margaret was dealing with her medication crisis, there's an entirely different mistake that happens even more frequently, and it usually strikes in the middle of the night. Mistake 2. Rushing out of bed too quickly. When Gerald Patterson hit the floor, he heard the crack before he felt the pain. A sharp, dry sound that told him immediately something inside had given way. His breath caught. The room seemed to tilt and spin, shadows shifting in the dim light of 3 a.m. He tried to move, but the pain in his hip exploded through his body. All he could do was stare at the ceiling fan and wonder how a simple trip to the bathroom had landed him here, helpless on the cold floor. For 71 years, Gerald had prided himself on being strong. A former contractor, he still mowed his own lawn, fixed his neighbor's fences, and bragged that he could move like a man half his age. That confidence became his downfall. He never thought twice about how quickly he got out of bed, until that night. It started with a familiar feeling, the late-night urgency every senior knows too well. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed, pushed himself up like he'd done thousands of times before, and then the world went black. His knees buckled. He collapsed before his hand even found the wall. The next thing he remembered was the sound of sirens and the paramedics cutting through his bedroom door. At the hospital, the doctor explained something Gerald had never heard of: orthostatic hypotension. A sudden drop in blood pressure when standing up too quickly. It happens to almost everyone over 60, the doctor said. But men like you who move fast get hit the hardest. He went on to explain that it takes 30 to 90 seconds for the body's blood pressure to stabilize after lying down. Standing too fast can make the brain momentarily lose oxygen, causing dizziness or even unconsciousness. For Gerald, it caused a fractured hip and 6 weeks of immobility. While recovering, he made himself a promise. He'd never rush again. With his physical therapist, he created a new habit he calls his sit-wait-stand system. Step 1. When you wake up, sit on the edge of the bed for 30 seconds. Step 2. Plant your feet on the floor, take a few deep breaths, and only then, stand, while holding on to something stable. Step 3. Pause again before walking, just 10 seconds more. He also added a few smart safety upgrades: a discreet grab bar beside the bed and motion-activated night lights leading to the bathroom. I don't stumble in the dark anymore, he laughs. If you're over 60, 30 seconds of patience can save you 6 weeks in a wheelchair. Now fully recovered, Gerald teaches this method every Tuesday at his local senior center. He ends every class the same way: you can't out-tough your blood pressure, but you can outsmart it. Gerald's story taught me something crucial about how our bodies change after 60. But this next mistake, it's one that people don't even realize they're making, until it's destroyed their savings. Mistake 3. Answering unknown calls and trusting caller ID. In 2023 alone, seniors lost over $3.4 billion to phone scams. Not because they were careless, but because the criminals got smarter, more convincing, more patient, and heartbreakingly real. Robert Chun, a 69-year-old retired accountant from Seattle, used to shake his head when he saw scam warnings on the news. He'd managed numbers his entire career, balancing multimillion-dollar ledgers without a single error. "I'm too careful to fall for that nonsense," he'd tell his wife. But one Tuesday morning, his phone lit up with a call that seemed perfectly ordinary. His bank's name appeared clearly on the screen. He answered. The voice on the other end sounded just like his banker, Mark, the same calm tone, the same professional phrasing. "Mr. Chun, we've detected suspicious activity on your account," the voice said. "We need to transfer your funds to a secure holding account until we verify the source." The call even came from the bank's official number. There was no reason to doubt it. Over the next 48 hours, Robert followed every instruction. 3 wire transfers, each for tens of thousands of dollars. When his real bank finally called, it was already too late. $127,000, his entire emergency fund, was gone. The FBI later explained what had happened. The scammers had used spoofing software to mimic his bank's number and AI voice cloning to recreate his banker's exact voice from old voicemail recordings. It wasn't just a scam, it was engineered deception. Robert's story doesn't end there, though. After months of anger and shame, he decided to turn his mistake into a lesson for others. He now teaches a simple, foolproof rule that every senior should follow. Rule 1. Never answer unknown numbers. Let them go to voicemail. Rule 2. If anyone mentions account problems or urgent transfers, hang up immediately. Rule 3. Call your bank back using the number on your debit card, never the one that called you. And one more safeguard that saved him from a second scam attempt. He promised his daughter he'd never move more than $1,000 without telling her first. It's not about permission, he says. It's about protection. Today, Robert works with his bank's fraud department and local senior center to educate others. He's recovered $31,000 so far, but the real recovery came in rebuilding his confidence. If it could happen to me, he admits, it can happen to anyone. As I was researching these stories, I kept seeing the same pattern over and over. These aren't complicated mistakes. They're simple, everyday habits that our bodies and minds just can't handle the same way after 60. That's why this next one really stood out to me, because it's something almost everyone does. Mistake 4. Skipping meals or eating irregularly. In a recent health survey, over 61% of seniors who skipped meals were found to suffer from nutrient deficiencies serious enough to impair balance, memory, and heart function. That number might sound distant, until you meet Dorothy Williams, a 74-year-old widow from Atlanta who thought she was simply not hungry. Dorothy's mornings always began the same way. A mug of coffee, a crossword, and silence. She'd tell herself she'd eat later, but later rarely came. Lunch would pass with only a few crackers, and by the time evening arrived, she'd devour one enormous meal while watching her favorite reruns. Her neighbor Patricia, also a widow at 76, lived just across the hall, and yet her habits couldn't have been more different. Patricia treated food like medicine. 3 small meals, 2 snacks, and plenty of hydration, even when she didn't feel hungry. 6 months in, the difference between the two women was startling. Patricia still took brisk evening walks, waving to neighbors as she passed. Dorothy, meanwhile, had begun to shuffle instead of stride. She felt dizzy when standing and struggled to recall words mid-sentence. When her daughter arrived for a surprise visit one weekend, she froze. Dorothy had lost 23 pounds in just 3 months. A rushed trip to the hospital revealed the truth. Dorothy was severely malnourished. Her doctor used a phrase she'd never heard before: protein-energy malnutrition. Despite her full dinner plates, her body had been slowly starving all day. Her muscles had begun breaking down, robbing her of both strength and clarity. Patricia visited daily, gently reminding her, "Your body doesn't run on one meal, Dorothy. It needs consistency, not catch-up." Inspired by her friend's words, Dorothy began to rebuild. With her daughter's help, she now spends Sundays preparing 6 small containers of balanced meals: chicken, rice, vegetables, and fruit. She sets alarms for 8 a.m., 12:30 p.m., and 6 p.m., making eating part of her daily rhythm instead of an afterthought. Twice a week, she joins a senior lunch group, finding both nourishment and company at the same table. For months later, Dorothy had regained 18 pounds and, more importantly, her spark. Her mind feels sharper, her hands steadier. "I wasn't hungry," she told her doctor, "but my body was starving." Dorothy's story proves that nutrition isn't about appetite. It's about respect for the body's quiet needs. But as dangerous as neglecting food can be, the next mistake happens in a moment when we have no control at all, while we're completely unconscious. Mistake 5. Sleeping in unsafe bed setups. For James Morrison, 68, a retired firefighter from Boston, danger was something he used to run toward. For over 3 decades, he pulled people from burning buildings, climbed ladders 5 stories high, and walked through smoke without hesitation. To him, fragility was something that happened to other people. But after a routine knee surgery, the first threat that truly caught him off guard wasn't a fire, it was his own bed. James's bedroom was filled with history. An antique 4-poster bed he'd bought with his late wife 40 years ago. Heavy oak, standing almost 3 feet off the ground. "It's solid," he always said proudly. "Built to last, like me." But after surgery, his balance and leg strength weren't quite the same. He noticed small things: how it took longer to swing his legs over the side, how his vision blurred for a moment when standing. He brushed it off as recovery. Then came that night. Around 2 a.m., he woke up needing to use the bathroom. The pain medication for his knee left him slightly dizzy. He sat up, reached for his nightstand, and the world tilted. A flash of vertigo from benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, BPPV, made the room spin. He tried to steady himself, but momentum carried him the wrong way. He rolled toward the edge, fell nearly 3 feet, hit his head on the dresser, and broke his wrist trying to brace the fall. He lay there on the cold hardwood floor for 8 hours, unable to get up, until his morning caregiver found him. "You'd think after everything I've seen I'd know better," he said later. "But I never thought my bed would be the hazard." At the hospital, the doctor told him something that shocked him. 30% of seniors who fall from bed suffer moderate to severe injuries, including fractures and head trauma. The irony hit hard. James had spent years rescuing others from danger, yet ignored the one space most likely to hurt him. His physical therapist helped him rebuild more than just muscle. She rebuilt his environment. Together they made 5 critical changes. Installed discreet, removable bed rails that didn't look institutional, lowered the bed frame by 6 inches, added motion sensor floor lighting, placed a bedside commode within arm's reach, and made sure James wore his life alert button every night. Now, 14 months later, he hasn't fallen once. "I used to think safety meant strength," James says, "but now I know it's about foresight." James never imagined his own bed could be dangerous. But this next mistake is different. It's about something people do to stay healthy, only to find out they're quietly making things worse. Mistake 6. Exercising without proper warm-up or overdoing it. The sound that changed everything was a pop, sharp, sudden, and unmistakable. Linda Peterson, 65, found herself in the emergency room, gripping her shoulder with tears streaming down her face. She couldn't lift her arm, couldn't dress herself, couldn't even brush her hair. For a woman who had spent 40 years as a nurse helping others heal, it was a humbling reversal. Just that morning, she told her friend on the phone, "I refuse to slow down. 65 is just a number." Determined to stay youthful, Linda had been following an online workout series designed for people half her age. Every day, she'd wake up, roll out of bed, and start exercising within minutes. No stretching, no warm-up, just intensity from the first second. It made her feel powerful, unstoppable, until her body finally stopped her. That morning's video featured an advanced yoga flow. On her 3rd attempt at a chaturanga push-up, she felt that fatal snap in her shoulder, a torn rotator cuff. But the shoulder wasn't the only casualty. For 3 weeks prior, she'd been ignoring a dull ache in her foot. It turned out to be a stress fracture, caused by repetitive strain and 0 rest days. The orthopedic surgeon who examined her said something that lingered. "After 60, your tendons are like old rubber bands. They can still stretch, but they need care, warmth before tension." The message hit hard. Linda realized that while exercise is essential for aging well, the way we exercise must evolve. What once built strength at 35 can cause injury at 65. During recovery, her physical therapist designed a new system built for longevity, not punishment. Every session began with a 10-minute gentle warm-up, walking in place, arm circles, slow stretches. Her workouts shifted focus, balance, mobility, light resistance, and low-impact cardio instead of punishing intensity. Most importantly, she learned to listen to her body's signals. Pain wasn't weakness to be conquered anymore. It was information. Now Linda follows the 3R rule: ready, respect, recover. She warms up to get ready, respects her body's limits, and gives herself recovery days to rebuild. A year later, she's stronger than before her injury, not because she pushed harder, but because she trained smarter. "I was so busy trying not to be old," she says softly, "that I was destroying my body in the process." Linda learned the hard way that trying to fight aging can backfire. But this final mistake, it's the most common one of all, and it silently shapes every single area of life after 60. Mistake 7. Isolating yourself and not asking for help. Research shows that social isolation increases dementia risk by nearly 50% in seniors. It's a staggering number, yet it often sneaks up quietly, day by day. For Thomas Anderson, 72, from Minneapolis, this statistic became painfully real. Married for 47 years, Thomas had built a life of routines and shared moments with his late wife. When she passed away 2 years ago, the emptiness hit like a physical weight. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began withdrawing from the world around him. Started small. He stopped attending church, politely declined dinner invitations, ignored phone calls. "I don't want to burden anyone," he told himself. "I'm fine on my own." But the mind and body don't thrive in silence. 6 months in, Thomas's routines unraveled. He stopped showering regularly. Meals were forgotten. His home, once neat and orderly, fell into disrepair. He began writing a suicide note, thinking it was the only way to end the constant ache of loneliness. His daughter's surprise visit revealed the gravity of his situation. Thomas was hospitalized for severe depression. The psychiatrist explained the neurological consequences. Lack of social interaction starves the brain of stimulation, accelerating cognitive decline. Brain scans confirmed it. Measurable deterioration had already begun. The turning point came during therapy. The therapist asked a single, piercing question. "Would you want your best friend suffering alone?" Thomas paused. In that moment, he realized he had been isolating himself not out of pride, but out of fear of being a burden. Accepting help wasn't weakness, it was survival. Thomas's recovery was gradual, deliberate, and structured. He joined a senior center, initially forcing himself to attend, even when he didn't feel like it. Over time, his Tuesday morning coffee group became a non-negotiable appointment. He allowed his daughter to help with groceries and cleaning, learning that receiving assistance didn't diminish his dignity. Volunteering at the local library twice weekly gave him purpose, and starting a grief counseling group helped him connect with others who truly understood. Today, Thomas still feels the ache of loss. He will always miss his wife, but his mind is sharp, his body engaged, and his heart connected. He no longer hides from life. "I thought I was being strong by not needing anyone," he says, "but I was actually dying." Thomas's story is a stark reminder. No amount of independence should come at the cost of connection. Reaching out, accepting help, and remaining engaged are not signs of weakness. They are lifelines, essential for health, happiness, and longevity after 60. If these stories opened your eyes to how fragile life can become after 60, here's what I need you to do right now. First, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Every story, every tip, every life-saving habit I share is designed to reach seniors before mistakes happen, before accidents, scams, or health crises strike. By subscribing, you're not just protecting yourself, you're helping others in your community access this critical information before it's too late. Second, and this is just as important, share this video with anyone over 60 who could benefit from it. Send it to your parents, text it to your neighbor, post it in your local senior group or community chat. Every share could be the difference between someone making a mistake they'll regret or avoiding it entirely. This isn't fear-mongering, it's empowerment. The YouTube algorithm rewards engagement, which means every like, comment, and share directly helps more seniors see these life-saving lessons. Remember, none of these mistakes are inevitable. Margaret still organizes her medications weekly. Gerald still sits for 30 seconds before standing. Robert never answers unknown calls. Dorothy now eats 3 balanced meals every day. James sleeps safely thanks to his new bedroom setup. Linda warms up before exercise, and Thomas keeps his social calendar full and his mind sharp. These aren't just stories. They're roadmaps to staying healthy, safe, and vibrant long after 60. Take these lessons seriously, put them into action, and pass them along. Your small action today could save someone you love from heartbreak, injury, or worse. Stay aware, stay engaged, and I'll see you in the next video, ready to share more strategies to protect your life, health, and independence.